All right, come on in, everybody. Welcome back to the final day of our 4-year nightmare.
I can't believe it.
Pretty amazing that we've come so far. Tomorrow, it will all end. I hope you're all doing well. I am Justin Kanew. This is Cassie. We are the Hollers here at the Tennessee Holler, tnholler.com. You guys make it all possible. Chip in and help the Holler. Even a few bucks a month goes a long way. Thank you for that. And we are really proud to be all over the place here in Tennessee. I think there's even more. That's not even the new one. We have another one since then, Clarksville Holler, and that's all thanks to you all. So thank you all for chipping in. But today, the big news is that we're about to get a new president tomorrow, obviously. So tomorrow's inauguration will be a big deal. And then also we want to talk a lot about how disgusted we are with the hypocrisy we saw yesterday. Cassie, how are you?
Doing pretty well. I'm looking forward to tomorrow. We've, of course, still got work to do, but it is a huge relief. And I just hope that everything goes as smoothly as possible. How about you?
Yeah, the smoothly as possible thing is something we should definitely talk about. Before we
Yeah.
start talking, I just want to remind everybody, this is the Holler Hour, Tuesdays, Thursdays, 2 p.m. You're supposed to holler at us too. So if you have anything you want to say to us about anything at all, whether you agree with us, disagree with us, whether you want to talk about the inauguration or MLK Day, message us for the link and we will give it to you. You can jump in wherever you are. We've had people doing that and it's been great. And we always appreciate hearing from you, even if you're on the other side of some of these issues. But, I guess first you mentioned the inauguration and the danger that we're facing with the inauguration. I mean, this is something that we need to really talk about. Basically, we're not sure if the troops that are being sent there are maybe going to turn around and become a danger to the people that they're supposed to be there to protect. And actually just today, the AP came out, and this is too small, you're not gonna be able to see it, but they said that 2 National Guard members are being removed from duty, basically because they have right-wing extremist tendencies and are essentially white supremacists. So my question is, if they're unfit to guard Biden, why are they fit to still be in the National Guard? I'm not sure I understand that one.
How come they weren't vetted already for this?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
how have they not already been vetted for this exact thing?
Right. It's like they're going, hey, maybe we
What?
should make sure that we don't have a bunch of white supremacists in the
Mm.
National Guard. Like, how did we not do this before they got into the National Guard?
How
How
are
do we
they
not
there
do this
already?
before they become police, before they become
Right.
FBI agents, before not being a white supremacist seems like the bare minimum for
It's
like when you're
kinda
any
the
job, really.
bar,
Yeah.
like, for pretty much anything, especially something where you have, like, that much power over populace, like,
Right.
you would think,
Like
but
no business should have like a white supremacist problem as like something that we just all expect
I
and
know,
are okay with, especially
it's
not one where they have guns and badges and can do pretty much whatever
exactly.
they want to anybody.
It just makes you, like, really think about, like, how did the system become the way that it is? Like, what sort of function does it actually serve? How is it so easy for them to do this? I mean, I don't want people at my grocery store to be, or anywhere really,
Exactly.
but, like, to be white, to be, like, the person bagging groceries at the grocery store or whatever, doing nails, anything to be a white supremacist, but let alone people who are carrying around guns and, tear gas and pepper spray.
It's truly, truly wild. And, it ties us right in with what we were talking about yesterday. I mean, basically, Martin Luther King Jr. Day has become Republican Hypocrisy Day. Like, I
Yes.
can't, it's like all I can think
At
about
least
when I
in
see
Tennessee.
them in Tennessee, especially like
Yeah.
when they lift up the things that they appreciate about him, and all of them were doing that yesterday. But then you think about it, like, what do they agree with him on? And, they
They can't
stand in
answer.
they stand
Like,
they stand in opposition
nonviolence.
to that's the thing they go back to, but they stand in opposition to expanding Medicaid. They
Right.
stand in opposition to protest. They just passed a felony protest bill here in Tennessee. They criminalized voter registration. They're against, federal jobs guarantee, which he stood for. He was a self-avowed democratic socialist. So, but
Yep.
then you nailed it. That is exactly what they go back to. They go back to the nonviolence part of him. That's what they appreciate. And the reason is because that protects them, because
Exactly.
they care that he was telling people to not be violent, because that makes their lives easier when people protest the things that they stand for. And so, today I actually had a chance at the legislature
This is a
to
good time.
talk to one of them. And let's go ahead and play this clip. This morning, I had a chance to Jeremy Faison, who's the House caucus chair for the Republicans here in Tennessee, and I wanted to ask him about this exactly.
But do you see any contradiction between lifting up what he stood for and things like decriminalize voter registration?
Look at the look on his face, first of all.
It's just, yeah. It's almost like the Tucker Carlson look.
Right.
Him up, but also standing against his agenda. Is that a contrast there?
I don't think that's standing against his agenda. Obviously, he preached often about nonviolence.
He goes right to nonviolence.
Right there.
He goes right to nonviolence because this is what they care about. Nonviolent protest that makes them sleep a little bit safer at night and a little bit more comfortable.
They also don't understand what that means because nonviolence is different than peaceful protest. Like nonviolent protest can be, disrupting property. It can mean, getting in people's faces. It can mean making other, politicians like Jeremy Faison very uncomfortable. Like that's the point. That's the point of differentiating between peaceful and nonviolent. And there were also in the way that MLK, structured his protests back in the day and people who were in the civil rights movement, they were very strategic in how they almost baited police and law enforcement. And so it's because it served because of the purpose that it served. And so he clearly has no idea what he's talking about when he's referencing nonviolent protest. He has no idea about the point of agitation and protest that disrupts people's comfortable lives, essentially.
Right. They went to where they went to because they knew it would result in that kind of confrontation.
There was a children's crusade.
Bull Connor, this is the monster that we're dealing with here when we're talking about Selma, we're talking about Birmingham. And, but all they know is nonviolence. Oh, they think of him as Gandhi but he said riot is a language of the unheard. He was very challenging. He would not have been the kind of guy that would have been a fan of Faison at all. But then we went forward and talked a little bit more about this, and he couldn't really seem to comprehend it.
And that bill that you're referencing really would have to do with violence before you got in trouble.
No, that is not true. That bill would not have to do with violence before you got into trouble. The bill made camping a felony so that the people who are sleeping out there, the people who are sleeping out there on the plaza for 63 days would not be able to do it anymore. And that is the purpose of it. Violence was already illegal.
Exactly.
Or camping here. You have to remember, when camping, you don't live here. This place belongs to everybody. So camping here is something that's... So
you can't camp anywhere you don't live? Did he just expand the law? Like, if you don't live at the park, you can't camp at the park? Is that now the law?
For years, we don't believe you should be able to camp here on the premises, and
it's not
to make sure.
They're posting up there to make a point. They're putting their bodies there.
But I don't see any correlation between.
This is where he tries to draw. He tries to draw a distinction between what these guys are like. They're not protesters. MLK, he did it right.
Yes.
Justin and them, no, they didn't do it the way Faison likes to do it. Like, why don't you just tell them what to do, Jeremy?
Exactly. I would love to hear what his ideal protest would be.
Right. It's just like where he can wave at them as he walks by.
These are the people that get mad at Kaepernick, anyway.
Exactly. Anyway, we go on to talk about this here.
Yeah, you got to see the end.
Letter from a Birmingham jail.
So then he brings up the letter from a Birmingham jail where MLK was in jail because he was protesting.
Exactly.
Do you know why he was in that jail?
I do. And did you notice that he went after his own people?
Look, and did you hear what he said just then too? Like,
he said he was going to go after his own people. Like, what did he mean there?
That's something that I've also heard conservatives bring up a lot, where it's like if MLK has criticism for his own community, then they point to that instead of literally everything else that he has to say. Like, it's just like they single out these cherry pick like nonviolence, not understanding what it means, and then also cherry picking critiques of his own community, but ignoring the aggregate of his race class analysis. It's absurd.
It was for protest, Jeremy. Walking away is not going to look any better. I promise you that.
I love when they walk away. Like, they walk away like they're like they're pulling one over on us when they walk away, but no, they just look
Ooh.
like they're running away. I mean, it's just ridiculous. Christina is saying that now 12 guardsmen have been removed from
Oh
inauguration.
my.
Frankly, I'm surprised it's that low out of
Mhm.
25,000 people that are there.
Mhm.
But this Jeremy Faison, we're singling him out, but it wasn't just him. It was so many of them that did this. This was Governor Lee said, we honor Martin Luther King. Meanwhile, he refuses to expand Medicaid to 300,000 people and spent $1 million keeping peaceful protesters off a public plaza this summer,
Mhm.
then criminalizing them with his law. Then there was Mark Green, my favorite. By the way, they were using this picture of Martin Luther King. Like a lot of the reps posted that. They must have passed that out. Like they
Mhm.
must have sent an email out like, let's use this picture of him for some reason, because Rep Chuck Fleischman used the same one. Meanwhile, Mark Green blocked Medicaid expansion in Tennessee. He was a big part of that. And, you know, his lies also helped incite a deadly insurrection. And then, you know, Marsha Blackburn, once upon a time, she unleashed on Colin Kaepernick, but, you know, there she was yesterday saying our nation celebrates and honors the life of Martin Luther King. Like, if you were not for what Kaepernick was doing, there's no chance you would be would have
No
been for
chance.
what Martin Luther King was doing. Zero chance about that.
I mean, I think that what you said earlier is like really speaks to exactly what's at the root of this, which is like asking them, well, what kind of protest would be acceptable to you? If
Right.
Kaepernick, it's like literally the most innocent type of protest. It's not like affecting anyone really, you know, like him kneeling during the national anthem. I mean, if that's not okay with you, like that's the lowest of bars.
Right.
I don't see anything being okay. They're just, you know, they don't want to be, you know, made to feel uncomfortable in the racism, their own racism that they don't want to acknowledge.
They refuse to acknowledge it. And, you know, the few more, this is Senator Brian Kelsey, who's championing the right to work bill. Martin Luther King was in Memphis supporting the sanitation workers strike when he was
Right.
killed, you know, to be the anti-union guy in Memphis, Brian Kelsey, and saying, I support Martin Luther King. I mean, that is just all kinds of full of shit right there.
So many layers.
John Rose is another one who, you know, he's lifting up Martin Luther King, just voted against millions of black votes in the election. And then, you know, Marsha, let's not forget, invited a neo-Confederate secessionist to deliver the prayer to Congress not too long ago. This guy came and delivered the prayer. I forget what the name of his group was, but he had something to do with Southern, I'm forgetting. Anyway, I'll come up with that. But, you know, Marsha Blackburn has some serious racism ties and not to be forgotten. And, you know, the thing that you mentioned yesterday, and we should all bring up, is, you know, that it's a lot more than just flinging a coin to a beggar. True compassion is, you know, it's revolution. He was a revolutionary.
Yes.
And he was pushing for things that would have made a lot of people uncomfortable, including white moderates, constantly talking about white moderates as, you know, potentially a bigger problem. And that's something that I think a lot of people need to hear, including people that I think whose hearts are in the right place a lot of the time.
Yeah.
But, you know, we do sometimes have moderates posing an impediment to progress when, you know, when they say things like, oh, it's not really that time. It's not, you know, now's not the time. You're moving too fast. You're scaring people. And, you know, that's something that comes up a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. I mean, it really just institutionally makes a lot of sense too, because like the center has so much control over what happens. I mean, and like center right, you know, it's like our government has operated for so long, just kind of like on a center right line, that like there's a lot of institutional backing and power and like political capital and actual capital behind that, where it's just towing this in like this this unequal system along, and that's what has the power. That's like everything is behind that. And so like, you know, if you're a moderate, then critiquing that power structure is offensive to you. But that is the stumbling block. That is the block, the obstacle between the liberation of Black people and pretty much every marginalized community, including poor people, you know, in this country. So it's
and
just,
I think that's something that people need to hear, you know, and let in. And you know, even well-meaning people, you know, I think that comes as it's hard to hear sometimes. But that I remember Justin Jones yelling that at Mike Bloomberg when he was in town.
oh, right.
And
right.
and you know, that's something that always stuck with me. But this is a clip that we are going to play every single Martin Luther King Day. This was still maybe my favorite clip of all time. This is Reverend Dr. Barber was in Nashville 2 years ago, Governor Lee, for some reason, this was like 2 weeks after he was elected, showed up at a Martin Luther King Day celebration. Not sure what he expected to happen when Reverend Dr. Barber was on the docket. And I just want to play this because it's one of my favorites.
So politicians can't say they love Dr. King and how he stood for love and unity, but then you deny and refuse to support his agenda. Right, Governor?
Oh, so good. And that's Lee's face right behind him.
He's right there.
He's right there in the corner.
Right, Congressman? So let me show you what I mean, Governor. Dr. King would not have been for a wall. And how many of y'all are not against a wall? Everybody here that's not against the wall, politicians, everybody, and will tell Donald Trump, you don't need to be building a wall to separate people. We need to be spending money to give people health care. Stand on your feet. Now, anybody that doesn't stand on your feet, you get the seat.
And that's Representative Harold Love right there.
Yes.
I mean, it's just so good. I mean, we could watch this whole thing. I could watch the whole speech, honestly.
Yeah.
It's so good. We posted a few clips of it. We will post that every single year. And I guarantee you, Bill Lee will not be going near Dr. Barber anytime soon.
I know. I think you said this once is like, his scheduler was probably fired the next day.
Definitely. Like, the next moment. The next moment. And we could go on and on. I mean, this went on for like a half an hour. He took off his jacket. He ended up calling kids up to the stage. I mean, he just straight up humiliated Governor Lee. And it was really one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. I hope you'll all seek out that speech and watch it. It's something that's worth watching for sure. But, you know, it's just such hypocrisy for these people. And you know, it for some reason tends to dominate the day more than it probably should. But, you know, it's hard not to focus on it when they're such hypocrites.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, and we tried to post about this as well. Obviously, it's about his actual teaching. Like, that's the important part of the day. But I think that it is also right. Exactly. Like, he had not, you know, a race class analysis that, you know, the economic system is completely unequal in this web of white supremacy that like makes up, you know, our system and the people that control it. That's why, you know, the March on Washington was a march for jobs, which, you know, I mean, these things are inextricably tied together, which is why, as you point out, you know, Medicaid expansion, jobs guarantee, universal basic income, all of those things are tied together. But pointing out that hypocrisy, though, pointing out that these people, it's just, it almost like couldn't be more clear than on MLK Day when they try to praise him, because, you know, at the time, which is something that, you know, MLK's daughter pointed out yesterday, he was hated. MLK was hated at the time of his assassination by most of the country.
This is what she said. She said, please don't act like everyone loved my father. He was assassinated. A 1967 poll reflected that he was one of the most hated men in America, most hated. Many who quote him now and evoke him to deter justice today would likely hate and may already hate the authentic king. And I think, you know, giving her the word on that is definitely what everybody should be lifting up, that tweet especially. And it's just really true. And, you know, we see the insides of a lot of the people lately. Today, Pompeo came out against multiculturalism, which, like, it was such a bizarre mistake to make. I mean, it must not have been one, honestly.
It's a Freudian slip.
Is it? Or is it just straight up like, I don't like other cultures, you know? And this is a guy who is an Italian American, so maybe he doesn't really understand what multiculturalism actually is.
It's only for white people.
It's only for white people. But I just find it funny that, like, this is the guy we send out to other countries on our behalf as our Secretary of State, railing against multiculturalism. It just seems like a pretty poor fit. And boy, can these guys not get out of here soon enough.
Absolutely. I'm so looking forward to that. And actually, Angel says in the comments here, I'm going to flash this up on the screen, that as you know, we've been posting about as well, Steve Berger stepped down as senior pastor at Lee's Church, Grace Chapel, just talking about the ideology that these people are getting, you know, in their whatever sort of bubbles they inhabit. I mean, it's no surprise as to why Lee is the way he is, because
Sure. And Steve Berger, I mean, people are aware, I think, of the fact that he was in DC. He, after the riot, blamed Antifa, then took it back, then blamed the media, called WSMV the devil, spent at least 2 sermons on Sunday railing against the media. And then less than a week afterwards is now no longer apparently going to be the senior pastor. He claims that it has nothing to do with those things. I find it very hard to believe that a guy like that, with everything going on, would just choose to step down. It feels like something else is going on there. Hopefully one day the truth will come out. But the idea that guy, like a week after all this was going on, is just going to transition out without being pushed out, I don't see it.
That's too much of a coincidence, I think. There's definitely something else going on there, and I'll be curious to see. Hopefully we'll one day be able to see exactly what happened there. But regardless, he shouldn't be in that position, so I'm at least glad that he's having to leave it one way or another.
Yeah, and just again, it's the bastardization of the message, and it's there's a lot of talk now about the split among evangelicals, among Christians. Obviously, more people are still with Trump, but I think people are starting to maybe have a little bit of a crisis of conscience. There are more pastors, people that have stood with Trump, that are starting to break from him, and that's an important thing. I mean, even today, we just had Mitch McConnell point the finger right at Trump when it comes to the insurrection, the riot. And to me, that's a pretty big deal. This was Mitch McConnell today.
The mob was fed lies. They were provoked by the president and other powerful people.
That is a big statement.
It is.
And, that is something that a lot of Republicans haven't wanted to admit. When I was talking to the Tennessee Republicans the other day and asking them, if they believed the election was stolen still, and if they believe Trump had something to do with it, they would say, yeah, they think there are problems with the election. They wouldn't say it was stolen, but they wouldn't concede that Trump had anything to do with it. They thought his rhetoric was fine because, if he's guilty, so are they for enabling him. But here's Mitch McConnell saying, no, yes, this was Trump's fault. That's a big deal. And I think that portends and, shows where we're headed here, which is going to be a big split in the Republican Party. We're going to see Trump try to keep control of it, and we're going to see Republicans maybe like McConnell, I won't say non-extremist because he is an extremist, but people like
more
McConnell,
traditional extremists,
traditional status quo, people trying to sort of kick him out, which means maybe, who knows how any sort of impeachment vote would go if they get the chance to make him unable to run again in the future. There may be a few of them that would take it.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see how that goes. And I think that is such an interesting question too, is like, where does the Republican Party go from here? And I think it's really hard to know. And so it's all speculation at this point, but it's definitely embroiled in this controversy, this split down the party line between Trump, the MAGA folks and the more traditional extremists, the status quo Republicans. And I think that, over the course of, the past couple of decades, at least, it's become more and more difficult for Republicans to win, national elections because the majority of the people, I mean, polling reflects this as well, are just not, and the popular vote reflects this as well, are just not on their side on the issues, like on the whole, speaking in broad strokes. And so they're having to resort to more and more undemocratic means. That's why they participate in more voter suppression. And
sure,
so
you look at the what's happened since he was elected, right? They lost the House, they lost the Senate, they lost the presidency. Like they've done a lot of losing, and so it feels like this is, like you're saying, a political calculation by McConnell. He may actually be fed up. I mean, an attack on the Capitol
probably
put
is.
His own safety at risk. That's
If
why
he enabled,
Marsha. Of course, but like,
of course, I know.
I just him. Like he almost got hurt. So it's always when it comes back to them and their own personal body and safety. Marsha Blackburn, Bill Haggerty. I see F. Smith one saying it seems out of character. It's out of character for all of them, but they were threatened personally. So, do I think it's about the McConnell power sharing arrangements? Yeah. I've seen some progressives, especially, talk about the power sharing thing that just came up with him and Schumer as though that's a problem. But I've also seen some smart people say that this is just how it goes. So I'm not jumping to conclusions on that. Democrats are still going to maintain power in committees. They're still going to be able to control what comes to the floor. I think this power sharing thing may just be how it goes because it's 50-50. And I wouldn't get too bent out of shape about that until we know more about it. I don't necessarily think that has anything to do with McConnell. I think he is positioning to try to maintain control of his party, which is, it's going to be a fight coming up. It seems pretty clear.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think that is definitely something to watch out for, though. I think it's a really good point. So I guess we'll just kind of have to see how that goes. But I think now is the
I don't
time.
think you mean the power sharing thing.
I mean, just like, yeah, potential. I don't know.
Like,
I just don't know.
Schumer is not already giving in to McConnell. Like, I don't
Well,
think
I
that's
don't know.
happening.
I'm not saying anything. I'm not trying to, like, be conspiratorial about this, but I've had, just historically had an issue with Democrats not using enough of their political capital when it comes to this
Sure.
sort of thing. And so I just don't know enough about that specific
That's all I'm
issue,
saying. I don't think we know yet.
Right.
And,
So
but I saw
I
a lot
just
of people jump on it last night.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point, is just to kind of like keep an eye, but like I just really hope, the only thing I'm going to say about this is that I really hope that Democrats use all of their political capital right now
Sure.
to deliver, the things that are really going to materially help people. Otherwise, we're going to, just because historically that's the way it goes, we're going to have big problems in 2022 and 2024 if we don't essentially do an FDR sort of term right now. That's
this
the
has
level
to
that
be,
we need to
and
deliver.
look, any opportunity to like show them that they're not going to get away with anything, I'm all for it. I just don't know that this one in particular was like the sound the alarm moment that a few people said it was. This was Marjorie Taylor Greene saying we all deserve a pardon, and she was just following. Or no, not Marjorie Taylor Greene. This was she flew to
She looks
she
similar.
flew on a private jet. Yeah, she looks like her. But they're saying they deserve a pardon, and they're saying they were following their president. So even though there are a lot of Republicans saying, oh, they weren't following his orders, the people who were following his orders say they were following his orders. So who are you going to believe in that one? I know that they don't want to accept that, but it seems pretty clear.
Yeah, definitely seems pretty clear. This stuff just continually is just extremely entertaining. I don't know.
and it's also going on here at home. This was the garage of Knoxville Mayor India Kincannon, was spray painted death. I think she actually saw the guy doing it, and he's at large. I think most people kind of know who he is, so I'm not going to name him yet, but it's pretty clear that they know who he was, and he had sort of become more and more radical over time. But this is just where we are. This is the radicalization of our neighbors, the radicalization of people that we spend, we see in our everyday lives. And this is where it's become, it's a pretty scary thing. And they're all at fault. All of these insurrectionists who poured fuel on the fire, they all deserve to be remembered for it. This is how they will be remembered. And I really, really hope that there are Republicans out there who will primary them, even if it's a steep climb and an uphill battle, because they all deserve it. And the conversation needs to be had. And if Democrats are going to be challenging them from the left, people should be challenging them from the right. There should be a movement. And, I just would hate to see them just concede.
Yeah, I hope so as well. And that goes back to the question of like what happens to the Republican Party now. I mean, I for one, if I had my dream, would just hope that they kind of implode because of this mess that they've created for themselves and this deep divide that exists within their own party. But I don't know. I could see it going in one of many different directions. I know as we've been talking about, the McConnell wing has kind of been coalescing around the way that things have always been. Just kind of the traditional status quo Republican line. I just kind of am going back to the thing that they need, like a new, like some sort of a project almost. Like what are they actually, are they going to go back to
a Lincoln project?
I don't.
You walked into that one.
That was good.
Into that one.
I don't know. I mean, I just them. Like they're just
I will
having
say
to
this though.
resort.
I will say this, like, actually probably the more help we try to give anybody, the worse it's going to be for them. Like, they're probably not going to want anything to do with us. But I do think in general, Democrats should give some thought to helping them get their party back. Like whatever that means. I don't know how, but I would like to see. I don't know what it means, but I do think like I would have a Republican on here, to talk about, what I mean? Like lifting them up, giving them space to talk. Like, I don't know what that means exactly, but I do think we're all going to be better off if Trumpism is killed off.
I agree with that. I agree with that. But I think that, I mean, and I know you agree with this as well. We've talked about this so much, but that like for so long, I mean, the Republican Party was essentially in a lot of, I mean, Trump was ideologically kind of all over the place with certain things, but a large part of his, the way that
He's
he
a
actually
symptom.
governed was,
Yeah.
of course, right. And so it's like
Yeah.
it's like mask off, Trumpism was just mask off
Sure.
conservatism in a lot of ways,
Yes, that's
minus
true.
some of the austerity issues and maybe some foreign policy stuff. But he was still terrible in that regard. Anyway, it's just like I kind of like would caution that I don't know what I would hope for is like if there's any way for whoever would be interested in having a country that worked this way, like if there was like what I would hope for would to have the left, sort of like the progressive wing of the country, be its own party, and then to have sort of more like a more
I see.
Biden party be the right. I know that's kind of a long shot because we've still got a lot of MAGA folks in this country,
Yeah,
but
there are.
and that's a very real thing that we're going to have to contend with. So that's just like a pipe dream. But I would caution against wanting to recreate the Republican Party kind
I'm
of
not
as
saying
it was.
recreate it. I just think that
Like,
there should be a more concerted effort because they've just sort of let it happen. And, I think there should be a more concerted effort by the Republicans who threw up their hands a long time ago to beat them back. And, hopefully that starts now-ish. I'm not saying that I hope they get any power or anything, but I just hate to see such a loud voice coming from, people like this. And it hurts, especially here in our state. Like in Tennessee, we are so owned by that voice that it's really painful to listen to every single day, and it hurts in a lot of different ways. And so I feel like there is a battle to be fought on that side of the aisle. Also, would I prefer everything to just take place in the Democratic Party? Yeah, that would be great. But I'm just trying to think out loud about what's coming. It seems like there's a fight coming, and
Yeah.
I'm not rooting for McConnell in any way, but I'm certainly not rooting for the insurrectionists.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that there is something, again, going back to the fact that they've just had to resort to kind of increasingly undemocratic means to win, and like undemocratic institutions, like, the Senate is undemocratic, and the Electoral College is undemocratic for winning the presidency. So it's like, and so there's going to have to be something that they rally around, like some sort of new project, and maybe it's based off of old things, but there's going to have to be something that like helps to coalesce that party again. And I just don't know what direction that's going to go in. I don't know which of these kind of terrible options that we have I would prefer, to be honest. I mean, because they're going to have to start, unless they want to continue down the path of increasingly undemocratic means, which I think is going to have a breaking point, then they're going to have to figure out a way to actually start winning votes from people. And a thing about that that's kind of concerning as well is that in the last election, the presidential election, Trump made inroads with, Hispanic Americans, Latina Americans, and Vietnamese Americans, like in LA, and with, I think, Black men as well, like primarily. I think those are the main demographics where he made some, like, it wasn't like a ton, but like some fairly significant inroads. So I think as Democrats, that's something we need to reflect on as well.
Yeah, I guess what I'm saying is
and I
I'd
think-
rather get back to arguing about like where the tax line should be than arguing about like, are Black people, like
for
I
sure.
feel like I'm
Yeah.
arguing with white supremacists all day long. And, I'd rather be arguing about actual policy stuff. And so to me, that means that they have to take over their party again. So I hope that happens. That's all I'm saying. I don't know
Sure.
what that means necessarily, but speaking of party stuff, Hendrell Remus has now become
Yes.
the Tennessee Democratic Party chair. He is a bit of a mystery to us, to me, but we will have him here on Monday. He's going to join us at 1 p.m. and we're going to talk to him, get to know him a little bit better, hear what he has to say about the future. But it was a bit of a surprise. I mean, I think a lot of people sort of thought Wade Monday was going to win. There were a lot of candidates in the race. I thought I heard people supporting Wade too, and Wade's a great guy, but everybody speaks very highly of Hendrell, and he's the first Black
a good guy.
party chair in state history. So that's exciting. And I think it, could bring a lot of people into the Democratic Party. So, it's a big step and one to be celebrated. I think everybody should be supporting him.
Yeah, I was excited as well. It definitely I wasn't paying, super close attention, but it was a little bit out of left field, but I'm pleasantly surprised with it. There were a lot of candidates that I really liked in the race, so it was, I would have been pleased with a number of people, but I do know Hendrell through some of the work that I've done in the past, and he's a really good guy, and I think that the Memphis ties will be a really helpful thing. I really hope that we can center Memphis and some more of the, in terms of with what the Democratic Party does, that they can center more of, just folks in Memphis more than they have done in the past. I think that would be a really healthy thing for the party on a number of levels.
Absolutely. I think, that's something that came up during the forums that we had, where not just having offices in Nashville, not only being around Nashville and the capital, that having a presence in Memphis too. And I think there's probably a lot more ground to be gained over there than here anyway. So I think that's a good point. And I hope that does happen. And,
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to talking to him on Monday and, hearing more what he has to say. But most importantly, tomorrow is the big day. It's the inauguration. We hope that you guys will enjoy it. It's well earned on the part of everybody who's fought so hard. I mean, I think back to 4 years ago when
Oh
this
man.
happened. I mean, it changed my life. I wouldn't have never have run for Congress if Trump hadn't won. I never would have, we started the Holler. Like, he activated me, in his own messed up way. And I think that's true for a lot of people that got involved with things that they normally, that they hadn't thought about in a long time. And so this is the culmination of all that work that everybody has done, especially women across the country. And, I remember the streets were full of women in the beginning, especially, and it was very clear when I ran too, that like women and mothers and, that was who was coming together to fight mainly. And people of color. And so, that's, I think, who deserves a lot of credit for this. Tomorrow is going to be an inauguration because, as Kamala Harris said, we cannot yield to people who seek to change who we are. I wish that they were doing a digital inauguration. I wish that they were keeping it safer. But, if it goes okay and nobody gets hurt, then maybe it will have been the right thing to do in retrospect. I don't think anybody would have been mad at them for not doing it this way. But, it will be nice to have a little bit of a celebration, I guess, and sort of stick a thumb in the eye of the people that have tried to change this, and mainly just go forward on a positive note and really try to, push this country in a positive direction with real change, and real pressure still to come. Like, again, this is not a moment to ease off. There's still a lot of problems in this country. People are still hurting. And so definitely put pressure on, keep the pressure on, stay with us. We're going to be doing that here in Tennessee. And you guys really make that possible with amplifying what we do, supporting what we do, subscribing. All of it really, really helps us be who we are. And we're excited about the days and years to come. We're all just getting started here. So we're awake now. We hope you are too. We'll be here Tuesdays and Thursdays at 2 p.m. Cassie, anything else?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to echo a little bit of what you said. I mean, as you said, the work, I think that a lot of folks are still, we need to keep the momentum going, keep the pressure on, no matter who's in charge, and to be clear-eyed about the issues that we're fighting for. But I think it's also okay to take a little bit of a breather tomorrow and just kind of enjoy the moment, because, as you said, a lot of people really worked really hard over the past 4 years, and got to keep at it and got to keep paying attention. But don't go back to brunch. But tomorrow, maybe hopefully everything gowe well. I'm really, really hoping for that. But hopefully we can all just kind of take a breather together.
Why you got to knock brunch?
Well, if you can multitask, I don't know.
I would like to eat some brunch while we, but honestly, like, I just think back on this presidency, and it's really hard to find the thing that was grossest. Like, I was trying to think of, like, what are the worst things? There's such a laundry list of, separating children from families, and, the whole Russia garbage, and, shithole countries. And he just really debased this office in so many different ways. It's going to be such a relief to get him out of there, and to have a president who, say what you will about Biden, he's a human being, and he definitely has a heart, and in that way, is somebody that will be fitting the moment, and hopefully the policies follow So we'll see you guys on Thursday. We'll be posting about the inauguration tomorrow, and we hope you all enjoy it.
Absolutely. Yep. Enjoy, everybody.